Whenever this thing starts up, we're going to test audio real quick.
Testing
Whenever
audio.
this thing starts up, all right, we're good. All right. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to go over the old and the new webinar frameworks. I'm just going to get right into it. Basically, I've been hacking webinars all week for one of my clients, and I'm just sharing with you what I've learned in the study of all these webinar slides and everything. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. So I have on screen the entire kind of webinar framework laid out with all the potential opportunities you have to spice things up. So I'm just going to go block by block on this. So this is what I learned in looking at all these, and I'll show you some examples too. I've got them pulled up here. Let's see. There we are. All right. Got that one. Okay. And I need the 12 secrets, the Kartra one. There we are. Okay. So without further ado, let's get in right into it. Okay. So optional. Okay. This block is optional, and it is a music or pre-framing opportunity. Sam Ovens does this. There's another person, Vimbasi Warrior, also does this, where they've got some kind of like motivational music, even like video content to kind of like help pre-frame what's going on. And a lot of times the speaking during those portions will be like, hey, is this thing on? You know, we're just going to wait for people to get in here and then we'll start. And this will go on for like 2 to 5 minutes. Personally, I don't think I'm going to do something like this. If I was to do it, it'd probably go on for like 2 minutes. Like I really wouldn't keep it that long. The next thing is if you're doing JVs, I'm working with someone right now who's working with a lot of JVs, and what they'll do is they'll get like a pre-recorded intro, either a voice intro or a video intro, and be like, hey guys, my name's John Appleseed. You know, I partnered with Blake here to bring this webinar to you, and he's got this really awesome content, blah, 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 right? So that's the order that would go in. And then there's two kind of optional little blocks here that you'll want to get in the beginning. So the first is what I call the 30-second pitch, which I pulled out of this webinar. So if we scroll down a little bit, let's break this down. So it's a title slide, and then he's got who this is for, basically, is what he's explaining here, and what you're going to learn in the webinar, and then he's asking questions early on to engage the audience, and then he goes back to the topic of his webinar. But here's this slide, and it's hey guys, today we're using Webinar Jam. It's really, really good. That's how you got here on this webinar, and it's how we're following up, and how all of our clients are creating awesome results is they're using Webinar Jam. We've got a free trial today, and if you want to get it, just click the order now button. Free trial, no obligation. And then he's got this little cool slide after it. It's 30 seconds, and that's it. That's my 30-second pitch out of the way. And then he just goes, this entire webinar, which is a lot of slides, is just teaching. And so you can use webinars, obviously, to sell things, but you can also use webinars just as teaching things. And so like people who do this are like Sprout Social or like Buffer. They'll do that a lot. Or like Salesforce kind of things. Like you'll see that they've just got like a webinar to just teach a new topic. Or like I'm in a professional organization called FDN, and they'll use webinars all the time. Usually they use them to teach new topics, and sometimes they will use them for sales. If you want to get super ninja, you can also just do the teaching webinar, and then at the end of it, don't actually pitch your product. Say, hey, if you want to hear about how you can get your hands on this product, come back tomorrow and attend the next webinar. And that webinar is strictly pitch. And I got that from Noah Kagan's podcast with Omar something, the founder of Ninja Webinar or something. He's got some kind of software. So let's hop back in. So now the next thing is if you stay to the end bribe. So I was on a Kartra webinar recently, and one of the stats that they showed me, so I'm not making this up, that it helps or it's more effective, is you can offer a bribe at the beginning. Hey guys, sign up on the chatbot and you'll also get this. And so you can deliver a bribe right when somebody signs up, or you can deliver the bribe at the very end of the webinar, which I think is a great way to do it because it's going to help that stick rate to the very end. So if you stay to the end, bribe, and then you can get into the classic this is for you confirmation section. This is for you if you want to learn how to grow tomatoes, but every plant you've ever owned has died. Or this is for you if you want to produce wonderful produce in your backyard, but you've never had a garden before and you don't have any money. You can do that kind of thing. And then the next thing is what you're going to learn, which is kind of like, it's almost like a pre-outline. Like you can put the title slide right at the beginning here, or you can put it kind of right after the bond here. So we'll get into that. So what you're going to learn, how to X without Y, and this is for you if extremely, extremely standard webinar sections. You'll find them in both the Russell Brunson and the Frank Kern kind of formats. And then there's a slide I learned from Frank Kern, super useful. It's called the house rules slide. So this is a slide where you just address any like immediate objections that somebody's going to have about what you're going to teach them. So for example, if I help someone with a health webinar, the points that I always touch on are like, this is not MLM, this is not lose weight quick, and like this is not fad diet. So house rules are like, you know, there's going to be no MLM, there's going to be no fad diets, and there's going to be no, you know, quick weight loss or whatever. And with all that out of the way, let's begin. It wasn't always like this. Great transition. A lot of people use that today, so it wasn't always like this. And then you can use this wonderful, wonderful framework called the Struggle, Loss, Discovery, Rebirth Framework, which I know I've talked about before. So it's basically the initial struggle. So like, hey, I used to have acne in high school. And then at the worst point, my face was completely red. I tried everything under the sun to fix it. And then that's when I discovered Proactiv. And Proactiv helped me clear my face really quickly. And then after my face was clear, I was able to attract all the girls. So that's really quickly Struggle, Loss, Discovery, Rebirth Framework. And it's a way to create an emotional bond with people. So then next up is just the teaching. And I think that people vastly overthink this. It's really not complicated to just teach. You know, this section doesn't need to be like some sales page, crazy copywritten thing. Like, you know, you can get into that. But I just teach people like I'm teaching you now. I'm just giving you exactly what I'm developing. So teaching, you can do the webinar title and say, all right, guys, now we're ready to get into the main piece of this, you know. So I'll just go back up to the top and use this one as a example. All right, guys, now we're ready to get into 12 webinar secrets. These will help you dramatically grow your business, even if you're new to putting on a webinar and don't know where to start. Or like this one. All right, guys, now we're ready to get into it. Unique webinar funnels. So, oh, and if you're skeptical that webinars are a relevant thing anymore, here's results from an affiliate contest where Jason Fladlien generated $9 million. So I think that that's a valid approach to business. So generally, you can take this kind of framework right here. I'll highlight it in blue real quick. So it's really simple. So point number one, you'd say, all right, guys, the first shift you need to make, or the first secret is, secrets is, I feel overused. I talked with Peng Joon at FHL 2019, and he said that 3 secrets is overused. So he does something like 5. I think 3 is a fine number, as long as you don't go 3 secrets, right? Because it's just so obvious. It's like health secrets, you know, PC builder secrets. Like it's so obvious what's going on there. So I would use, you know, point number 1 or shift, I think is a good one. And then use, this is something I learned out of watching that Kartra webinar, which I've got it right here. Kartra. Let's pull this up. There we are. So this is really cool. So I downloaded the webinar and I'll skip through. So here it is, discovering the 3 shifts. So he uses shifts and he uses the number 3. And then we'll click in, and then so he justifies why you're going to get it, and then he's got a title slide. Here's the title slide for the teaching we're about to go over. And then what's cool is right after this, he uses, let's see, he talks about the old way, he talks about the experience, and then he talks about his breakthrough thing. Hey, I found breakthrough advertising, and then what's going on right here is he's using a quote. You can use a quote, or you can use a story, or you can use an industry statistic before you actually teach what you're going to teach. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the authority of whatever you're pulling from. It's like, according to ActiveCampaign, Kartra, Klaviyo, and 70% of people abandon their cart, right? So I'm pulling massive industry authority. I'm saying that 4 people are all saying the same thing who are industry leaders. So that's why you should get this opportunity today, right? So using a quote before you actually get into teaching content. And then teaching content, really don't overthink it. I will pull up my template here. 1 second. And I'll show you how I break it down. Just a sec. Stick with me. Almost got it up. And then of course at the end of your teaching, you can always implant some kind of case study or testimonial. So that's what they did here in this Kartra one. So I'll just kind of skip in and see. Okay, so here's his teaching. He says, here's the new way to do webinars, right? Which is a fantastic way. I've participated in programs that have been delivered like this, which are live and group programs, and they work great. Just keep skipping on through here. Okay. One sec. So he's talking about the value of Webinar Jam. That's what they're selling on this particular thing. So at the end here, see, he's got a testimonial. He said, before Rachel was using this method, she didn't have the results that she wanted. And after she was using this method, then she was able to create $52,000 in sales before she even created her first lesson. So he's using the case study to like prove his point. So let me get my little teaching outline slide here. My snipping tool, favorite thing. All right. So here's the structure that I use, is basically the outline of what you're going to teach them in steps. All right, guys, here's shift number one. Shift number one, in order to lose weight, is going to be number 1, number 2, and number 3. All right, let's break down step number 1. Step number 1 is don't eat Twinkies all the time. And then you can talk about some of the things about why exactly that is and kind of, further substantiate your point. And then at the end of it, you can always just use like a big kind of like bold letter slide like this. I don't want to show you my whole template, so I'm grabbing things from it. You can just put the letters just big and bold. So it's like, boom, like punch in the face, like don't do this or do this, some kind of teaching point. And then you just repeat on that. So that's kind of the structure of the points. So the things that are new that I learned are using the quote in the beginning to create some more authority, and then using the case study at the end. And then point 2, point 3. And then if you had, point number 4, point number 5, just take this whole block, and that's point number 4, right? Point number 4, go through the same thing again. Awesome. All right. Now at the end, you'll have the recap. So, all right, guys, today we went over X, Y, and Z and how you can X, Y, Z. So now you know how to blank in your blank, right? You know how to generate more leads for your energy business, right? And then there's the transition. So you're probably wondering, that's called the psychic transition, or the global transition is everybody knows blank, right? So you're probably wondering, you can kind of stack those two together, and that's the combination. So now there's 2 more pieces, and these pieces are kind of one and the same, the future pace and time dilation. There's the good old 12-step ultimate offer formula, which is a Frank Kern structure. The Russell Brunson structure is also really great, but pretty much what you're doing on those is you're going to say whatever it is you have. You're going to outline it as modules. You're going to tell people the next steps. So here's how we'll do it. Module 1, we'll do this, this, and this. Module 2, we'll do this, this, and this. Module 3, we'll do this, this, and this, and so on, right? And then you would say, now if you want to go ahead and get it, go ahead and go to url.com, right? And then from that point, once you have the pitch on there, always have that little URL on screen that you're using. And don't make it some like crappy, like, HTTPS www. mattwrightpro.com/opt-in/get offer -XYZ. It's just hard to type in. You want to make it really easy for people. I have seen people use a bit.ly link. I don't think it's the best thing to do. The best thing you can do is to forward something from your domain. So like mattwrightpro.com/call, for example, I have set up, it's not an actual web page, it just redirects over to my Calendly link. So just an example. But wrapping around back to the 12-step ultimate offer formula, what you're going to want to do at the end of that is say, you're getting number 1, which is worth X amount. You're getting number 2, which is worth X amount, and number 3, which is worth X amount. So attending conferences, I learned that stacking things like that, people can actually only hold one number in their head at a time. So if you try to kind of bombard people with, this and this and this and this, you need to kind of like cross all those out and then put a final price point on it. And that's a really, really great way, really effective way to do things. So the 2 things that are not dealt with as far as I've seen within 12-step offer formula are future pacing, or what happens if you do this? What's I have actually a little sticker on my monitor right here. It's the question that says, what's the best thing that can happen? It's a question I ask myself a lot. And so it's like, you guys, say you get this course today, what's your life look like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And that can be like this huge transformational conversation. It's a big trigger for that. And then there's time dilation, which is kind of the same thing. What's it look like 5, 10 years from now? And then, of course, there's the close. So if you're ready to X, Y, and Z, go ahead and go to url.com and get the thing. And then you can kind of, that's the end of the webinar. But the last little piece is, if you're doing a live webinar, is to have a Q&A session. And so what you can do, if you're doing a pre-recorded webinar, or if you've presented the webinar before, what you can do is you can come up with those questions ahead of time and already have them pre-planned as slides and answer those. I've seen some templates that include those, which are fantastic. Or you can actually just take live questions. What's super cool about EverWebinar is that for every webinar you have, it'll capture that whole chat and play it back live. So one of the things I didn't mention throughout this whole entire framework is, if you should always be kind of like priming your audience. Sorry, my brain went out there. So one of the things you can do is just be priming your audience all the time by priming with questions. So, hey, are you guys ready to learn this? Yes. Okay, great. I see some people in the chat, etc. So that's kind of the whole outline for these webinars. That's why I learned studying 10 different things. And just one last little note that I thought was interesting here from someone who is very accomplished with webinars is scrolling through here on the actual offer page. What you'll want to do is have that button for the offer show up later. So I think I just showed this. Well, there's one I'm studying right now, and it just did the same thing. So anyways, that is the framework, guys. That's like everything I've learned from studying all this stuff. So sincerely hope it helps you, and we'll talk soon.